What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Corporate Bartender. Wow, we are amidst a run of banger episodes, and we are so excited to have Amber Ontiveros on the program today. Never heard of Amber? Well, she's going to blow your mind. We're talking near-death experiences, changing patterns to avoid suck-assness, and getting deep into the 4 wounds that we all carry around and have since childhood. They are, I'm not worthy, I'm not enough, I have to win, and I don't have enough. She's going to break them down and show us how to get out of the way of our inner imposter. Amber is an author, speaker, coach, and entrepreneur specializing in diversity. She's also the author of the new book, Heal the 4 Woundings, a guide to end discord and discrimination. It may sound like a traditional DEI book, but it is so much more. The hits keep coming, and you know what I'm going to say. This has been my favorite conversation of 2024. It was freaking bananas. We're getting into some deep stuff here, Bartender Nation, and I think you're going to dig it. So buckle up, TCBers, grab your favorite cocktail, and let's get right on into it with Amber Ontiveros on today's TCB.
Welcome to Sky Team's The Corporate Bartender, where we gather some of the best HR and people leaders to discuss what's happening on the people side of business. Now pull up a stool, belly up to the bar, and join us for The Corporate Bartender.
Welcome, everybody. It is Wednesday. You know what that means. It's your favorite day and mine. It is Corporate Bartender Day. It is the 14th of February. And what holiday is that, Ruby?
Valentine's Day.
Let's all make the hearts. There they go. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. It is the 189th time that we have convened this group of amazing people. We've got a guest today. You can see her up there in your Brady Bunch view. Her name is Amber Ontiveros. I will tell you all about her in a little bit. But you know what we like to do? We like to let you know what's coming down the pipe. I had a really fun conversation with this guy, Dwayne Allen, the other day. He is a engineer who works for Raytheon, and he is doing a bunch of really cool stuff in the DE&I space, empowering African-American leaders through STEM education initiatives. He's a leadership guy, transformation guy, and a people guy. So looking forward to having fun with Dwayne on the 6th of March. We've got Robin Bolton coming up on the 20th of March. She's the person who her PR person pitched me, and they're like, oh, she's all about innovation. And I'm like, we already done a couple on innovation. We did one with Lori's CEO, Phil McKinney, that was fantastic. So I'm like, I kind of been there, done that. We're looking for more of a people angle. And she's like, well, how about these innovative things that she did with Apple and with Facebook and with blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, okay, let's talk to her. So she'll be here. But today's the day that we're going to talk about the 4 woundings. Amber Ontiveros is here. She is the CEO of her own consulting firm, and she had a near-death experience that is the opener to the book that will blow your mind. It sets up the book in a fantastic way. She talks about these past wounds that we all carry around that manifest themselves in us today. And this is, I love the tagline here. It's a guide to end discord and discrimination. And this isn't just about work. It's about home. It's about life. And it's fucking real. I loved this book because on page 1, you get your first F-bomb. And I thought, she is my kind of people. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. Let's welcome her. I didn't warn her about this, but Amber, we dance people on to the show. So let's give her a good TCB welcome, shall we? Woo! All right. And she danced. That's extra points. You get the ding for the points.
All right. Love it.
Welcome, Amber. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. And I love the energy already.
Oh, this is going to be fun. We're going to have a good time. Before we get into what you're all about, I love to learn a little bit about your backstory, your journey, right? So I always ask people, when you were but a wee baby, I doubt you said, and I know you didn't say this because I know some of your backstory. It's in your book. I doubt you said, I want to grow up to be an expert on diversity, equity, and inclusion. How did you get here? Tell us a little bit about all the stops on the way to being here as the author of this book.
Honestly, I think I got here pretty accidentally. In the book, I talk a little bit about my background, but how I got here, I truly believe was accidental. I grew up poor on a farm in Arizona, and I accidentally went to junior college because that's what I could afford to, and so I followed my way. And I've always really been a geek. I pride myself in being a geek. And so I kind of followed my heart. And I eventually went to Lewis and Clark here in Portland, Oregon. And I studied philosophy. And, again, I'm a geek. And ultimately, I ended up, working for a senator here. Then the head of a transit agency, hired me to work for him as a policy advisor. And then ultimately I worked for the Bush administration and the Obama administration in DC, and then created my own firm. So it's really been pretty accidental in how I became a discrimination expert.
I love it. I love that you mentioned going to junior college. Your transition from junior college to 4-year was an interesting one, because didn't your counselor say you have too many credits to go here?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But again, one of the things, this book is really, for those of you that choose to buy it, it's really about seeing your own bias and your own past woundings that are showing up, that are making you see things not as they really are. And that's a perfect example, because when you don't know what you don't know, you only do what you know. And I didn't know that I could have gone to, many other great colleges, because I didn't have anybody else in my life that could help me guide me along the way.
I love that. The book kicks off with your NDE, your near-death experience story. And I mean, I wrote some notes. I read well, that's a compelling open. It's a big, big story. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah. So I wrote from that story because it cracked my consciousness. So I have a rare disease, and in 2016, I was laying in bed, and one minute I was in bed, and the next minute I was shaking, and I had a seizure, and the me that is me, that will always be me, popped outside of my body. And I floated through the ceiling, and I went into this blackness. And on the other side of this blackness was a tiny pinprick of light. And it called me. It called me. And the next thing I know, it sucked me into it. And in that light, I refer to the being of light as the infinite creator, because there was just infinite light. And it was a remembering. And in that experience, when you're not in the body, you know everything, because you are a spark, a piece of the consciousness of all of consciousness. And so as a result of that, in that experience, I had a life review where I reviewed all of the other experiences I had had in my life. And it was both beautiful and painful because I experienced how I had hurt other people in my life. And when I came back, I studied consciousness. I studied the neuroscience of unconscious bias. I studied quantum mechanics because it literally cracked me open to why was I behaving in the way that I was behaving? Because what the being of light shared with me is, oh, no, 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 Amber. You think that you're more righteous than the white man who is angry over Black Lives Matter. No, 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 baby. You have those same oppressive thoughts as him. And so it forced me to go on a mission to understand what was really happening. And the book is about what's actually happening. And I was guided through studying the neuroscience. And then I developed tools based on the neuroscience so that you can then take control of your thoughts, take control of your emotions so that you can see bias as it's unfolding, so you can halt it and change how you want to live in the world.
Awesome. I love in the book you talk about going to unconscious bias training, and it's fine.
Yes.
It's fine. It feels educational, I think is what you said. And it doesn't stick. I mean, I think everybody on this call has been on an unconscious bias training. Your exploration into the neuroscience, tell us about the RAS. What is the RAS and why does that matter?
The RAS filter is literally the thing that is holding us all fucking hostage and has been holding us hostage for our entire life. And so here's what's happening. So every one of us has driven to work. We get to work, and at one point you're like, how did you get to work? So what's happening is the RAS filter is the back part of your brain that is holding you hostage and will only allow you, it filters out everything you experience in your senses to only those beliefs that you have about yourself, about your beliefs that are in your unconscious mind. So therefore, if you think you suck ass because of your past woundings, you're going to experience things to show you that you suck ass because the RAS filter will hold you hostage to those things. That's what's happening.
No, go ahead.
Well, and so all of this was about that initial experience was like, no, 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 Amber. Why are you experiencing this? Because I was raped for many years when I was younger. You know, I was discriminated against a lot. You know, the aesthetic of beauty is like a white aesthetic of beauty. And therefore I believed that I wasn't worthy. And I believed I had to compete with you beautiful white women. And that's not real.
So powerful. During this time when you were putting these ideas together, you know, you talked about watching the guy on TV on the news after George Floyd, and it was a white guy. And he wanted to create some whites only utopia. And you got pissed. Yeah. Didn't you?
Yeah.
And you got pissed and you got a little self-righteous. What happened in that moment when the light bulb went off for you?
Well, so this is what happened. So in the book, I call it the mirror of racism. And it slapped me in the face when I was watching this guy. So I teach a technique now. It's called mindful listening, and it helps you slow down, focus on the breath so that you can understand what's actually happening in the moment so that you can catch your bias and choose your thoughts and your emotions. And so I was watching this guy and he was so angry. And what I realized he was really saying is, if Black Lives Matter, I don't matter. And that's based on a belief that he has about himself, that he is not worthy. And I was literally experiencing that same thing with my clients, because my clients would hire me and, to create some brilliant, product or program, and then they wouldn't implement it. And at some point I began thinking, is there something wrong with me? And then I realized, because there's these two biases that are essentially self-esteem protective mechanisms. They're evolutionary protective mechanisms so that you can overcome a challenge, protect your self-esteem so that you can eat. And so what was really happening with the white guy that was mad over Black Lives Matter, which was the same thing that I was going through, is I was believing I'm not worthy. And I was believing that because I was thinking I'm not enough compared to you, Mr. White Guy. And then I was believing I have to win because I'm comparing myself to you. And then I'm thinking that because I'm thinking, oh, in the past, I didn't have enough resources. So these 4 woundings are woundings from past trauma that are showing up in an existing experience, because your brain is processing information super, super fast and applying it to a new experience. And until you can stop, see the situation, see your thoughts, see your emotions, you can't change it. Therefore, you can't change your RAS filter. Therefore, you're going to experience a life of suck-assness.
I love it. I wrote down a quote from your book on that topic. It says, to change your patterns, you first have to see them at play.
Yes.
So when you're working with people and you're talking about these woundings, you mentioned worthiness. What are the 4 woundings?
The 4 woundings are: I am not worthy, I am not enough, I have to win, and I don't have enough. And so I'll just give a quick example of the woman that is oppressing the other woman. And, we could use oppression. I also show how this showed up for me with my partner that he didn't want to see me anymore. Anyways, it's very embarrassing. It's quite funny because it shows up everywhere.
It's a great story, and I am going to ask you about it.
Okay. So the woman that's seeing the other woman, what's happening is she's seeing, oh my gosh, there is something absolutely amazing in you, because she's seeing, I'm not enough compared to you. And so then, because she's seeing something brilliant, she's going, I'm not worthy compared to you. And then she's thinking, because she's worried about resources from some past trauma, she's thinking, I have to deny you a something or do a something to you because she thinks she has to win. But now the person who is being threatened, if you get angry, you're believing it. I didn't realize that once I changed the way that I felt about myself, and I knew I am worthy, when I knew I don't have to compete with you, I don't have to put anyone down to build myself up. And for the racist, I have compassion for the racist, because he is simply, or she is simply allowing a past wounding to show up in their behavior. It isn't who they really are. It's some programmed mechanism in the way that our brain operates. And for whatever reason, there's something about me that is, they're applying that past to the existing situation.
I like what you said in the book about for minorities and women and folks who are persecuted here. A lot of times that is really acute because their survival depends on it, right? Violence against women is a real thing, right? Violence against all of these groups, all the isms, right? It's a real thing. It's harder for me, middle-aged white guy, to experience that because my survival has never been threatened by it. But what's fascinating is what you just said, like that guy on TV, his response was a fear-driven response to some wound from his past that now he sees very brightly in a way that he did not see on last Tuesday, because last Tuesday is, it's just a normal day and he did whatever his white privileged self got to do. But after the George Floyd thing happened, people started looking at themselves in a different way. It's like, oh, this is kind of scary. I mean, you live in Portland. Portland went wacko during the pandemic, right?
Yes.
And you actually write about this in your book, the disconnect with the people in Portland, all the white liberal folks who don't understand that they're the same as the people in the South. They point their fingers at the people in the South.
Yes.
But they're the same.
Yes.
But it's all based on these wounds.
It is. It is.
So in those 4 wounds, they have core issues attached to them, right? So like obviously worthiness. The other ones, what are the core issues attached? I'm not enough. What is that one all about?
Well, so every single one of these wounds has to do with some kind of past trauma that we all have. And an important point that I'm trying to make with every single listener is this: racism, it's not about race at all. It's about these 2 biases. So one of them is called the self-serving bias. And essentially the way it works is if good things happen to me, I attribute them to myself. If bad things happen to me, I attribute them to everything outside of me. And so therefore, so think of it this way. If you apply for a job and you don't get the job, you blame it on something else, as opposed to maybe you didn't read the job description right and you didn't create your resume accurately to be in alignment to show your attributes relative to the requirements. So again, some past wounding is showing up in that experience. And for I'm not enough, we believe that we have to compare ourselves to someone else. Women, we believe that we have to compare ourselves to other women. We believe we have to put on certain something. That's the I am not enough. We believe it. And the point that I'm trying to make is if you want to take control of your mind, you have to understand what are those beliefs, where do they come from, and then change them. And don't ever have someone else define your success. You define your own.
I love it. So I'm not worthy. I'm not enough. I have to win. I don't have enough. Those are the 4 woundings. So you got smacked with all 4 of those when your former partner, we'll call him Scott, because that's what his name is in the book. And I'm willing to bet that's really his name, because that's what I would have done had I written this book. You got hit with all 4 of these. And this isn't a work DEI issue. This is life. This is real life. And you had a lot of sort of epiphanies as you worked through that process. Can you talk a little bit about just the self-care you had to impart to get through that process and what you learned? thanks to Scott.
Yes. Well, and I talk about every single time that you're triggered is actually a gift that you're giving to yourself, because there's something about that trauma trigger where you're trying to see what's not real. It's actually not real. And so in the case of Scott, I had taught him many of these things. And what ended up happening, which is so funny.
He used them on you.
He used him on himself, and he realized I really am awesome. And then he was like, I'm kicking you to the curb, Miss Amber. And so he calls and tells me this, and I'm like, and so then of course those heart woundings come up, which is like, I'm not enough compared to this other woman for whom I have no idea what the heck she is. Then I'm like, I'm not worthy, as though I'm never going to have a relationship ever again. You go there. I have to win, man. You suck ass, Scott, because I think that I'm never going to have a partner, which is I don't have enough of a partnership, of a relationship, of a love, of a something. In which case, are those actually real? No, they're not real. In which case, it showed through using mindfulness, through stepping back and analyzing the situation. And I go through all these techniques in the book, which is you have to feel your feelings, sit in your feelings. No, those are a gift. No. I realized these techniques teach you boundaries. When you really feel good about yourself, you know what you're worthy of and what you are not worthy of. So they teach you all of these things when you start applying the techniques. It's quite amazing.
So those techniques in the book, near the end of the book, there's a page called Heart-Based Steps to Freedom. Are these the sort of core set of techniques? Go within, breathe, accept feelings, all of those things. Is this if I'm going to go start on my journey to do these things, should I start here?
I would start here. So go within, breathe, accept your feelings, analyze your experience, shift your view, always to a positive one. In other words, Scott, thank you, my brother, for getting out of the way for the real man that's going to show up in my life. Thank you, motherfucker.
Growth.
That's the growth mindset. Look at it from a growth mindset point of view, which is, I made a mistake, and it was the sexiest thing I've ever done. Yeah. Boundaries. When people overstep your boundaries, no, take a step back and learn what should your boundaries have been, and take a growth mindset on yourself. All of it, if you notice, all of it is non-judgmental to yourself, loving to yourself, compassionate to yourself. Why? This is all about the neuroscience. Remember that RAS filter will control your life. If you don't change how you talk to yourself, it will certainly tell you how you are talking to yourself.
Yeah, you mentioned in the book, fill yourself up first. And it reminded me of, I fly in airplanes a lot, and you hear the speech all the time. Put on your oxygen mask first so that you can help other people. In your experience, your NDE, and working in the space that you work in, there's a lot of bad stuff that happens. Why does bad stuff happen, Amber?
Well, so if I hadn't had the NDE, I wouldn't have believed this. I wouldn't have. I'll just be honest. So in that NDE, I asked the being of light, why do bad things happen? And the answer that I received was deep. The answer was this: if you are white in a white room, how would you know white if you are white? The only way that you can know white is to know that which is not white. What is white? Love. You are a consciousness, a spark of the consciousness, which is a love consciousness. And so why do we come here? We experience that which we are not, which is not love, so that we can remember who we really are, which is love.
Thanks, Scott.
Yes.
So it's this notion of contrast, right?
It is. It is.
It's this notion of contrast. So some of the other techniques that you practice and that you've learned along the way, meditation, you're a daily practitioner, mindfulness. You know, mindfulness has kind of been in the spotlight. It's been trendy for a little while. You do another thing called loving inquiry, Amber. What is loving inquiry all about?
So loving inquiry is asking yourself a set of questions and also asking questions for when you're experiencing either hostility or discord. So when you are when someone else is threatened by you, you focus on the breath and you ask yourself some questions, which is, if you're getting angry, why are you getting angry? Why are you feeling the way that you're feeling? So you ask yourself a set of questions, and what are the beliefs behind why you're getting angry? What would someone who's getting angry in that situation have to believe to get angry? And you apply those same set of questions to the other person. And in the case of being threatened, the person that's threatened by you is threatened because they see something beautiful in you and they want to be you. They're giving you a compliment. If you get angry, you're getting angry because there's a part of you that believes something. You're believing it. In other words, you have internalized discrimination and internalized some kind of oppression that's showing up at that moment that's not real. And so you ask yourself these set of loving questions. Again, you're trying to change your RAS filter to a positive one so that you can see yourself in a different way. And I mean, the other thing, Eric, I know many of your listeners are HR and employers. And I just want to say one other thing, which is, you know, I read a study by McKinsey. Again, I'm a geek. And so McKinsey did a study of the top attrition and retention drivers. And the top 4 attrition drivers all had to do with feelings. 75% of them had to do with feelings. It had to do with whether or not the employee felt the leader was uncaring, whether or not they felt the work was meaningful, etc. And the thing is what is actually happening is, because we've been sitting in our feelings for years because of COVID, people don't know how to process their feelings. And so what's happening is these woundings are showing up in their behavior and they don't have the tools to process them. And so that not only impacts the workforce, but it impacts executives on decision making and on their ability to properly assess risk, which then affects their ability to actually allocate resources optimally. It affects their ability to innovate. In other words, they could be applying their past woundings to a situation that's going to result in suboptimal outcomes because they can't properly see the situation.
So good. So to our HR people, Amber, you know, we have been trying to figure out this DEIB conundrum for a while now. It's a big deal, and we need to address it. And it makes me think of back in the day when sexual harassment training became a thing. We've all done it. I think everybody on this call here has delivered it. We've all attended it. And it was a tick the box exercise. We all knew that. It was a thing that we had to do so that somebody would sign a form saying that they knew this stuff so that we would appease the legal team. We don't want to do that with inclusion. So for our HR folks out there, like, where do we start? Like, what's step one if we've never taken a step before?
Well, okay. So on another podcast, someone asked me a question, and I think it's completely relevant to the question that you just asked. And I highlighted it in the book with a story for from Africa, an African tribe, for how they deal with tribal members who are unbecoming to the tribe. Okay, so the question that was asked on the podcast was, how do you handle someone when they're like, well, we always done it this way? And here was my answer. In Africa, what they do is they take anybody that has acted unbecoming of the tribe and they put them in the middle of the tribe. They stop everything they're doing and they recount every good thing, every good deed, every kind word that person has ever done. Whoa. And what they do is they remind them back to the better part of themselves. And so what I had recommended they do with this person who's like, we've always done it that way, remind that person, remember when you got that project and nobody had ever done it, and you did this and then you did this and then you did this, and like, look at that thing that you did, and remember what a rock star you were and how badass you were and how you created this something. That's what I would do, which is flip it on its head and show the positive way, because everybody wants to feel good about themselves. They want to see themselves from a higher place of being. And when you help them see themselves from that higher place of being, they will rise to it.
Yeah. It's funny, right? You say it and it seems so obvious, Amber. It seems so simple. It's not rocket surgery. We should all be able to do this, but our fucking brains, right? They
yes, it's our fucking brain. It's our brain.
So getting our brains into that right mindset, and I'm going to share this with the folks here in just a minute, but I want to tell them about it right now. You built an affirmation playlist that you could listen to as you were going to sleep. Why did you do that, A? And B, why, when you go to sleep, what's the secret magic sauce there?
Yes. Oh, gosh, that's a good question. Okay, so everything in the book is actually intentional, including the affirmation playlist and at night. So there's a neuroscientific study that I read that shows that they compared one group that was learning how to actually play the piano, and another group that was playing the piano in their imagination. And what they discovered was there was no difference between both groups. The one that was playing in their imagination, it changed the brain structures for where you do that. It's neuroplasticity. It's real. It works. So what's happening with bias is that you get these inputs that are coming into your sense perceptions that are then resulting in these beliefs that you have. In which case, what's the difference between the imaginary process that's going on in your ears at night while you're going to bed? Well, while you're going to bed and sleeping, that's when your subconscious mind is the most permeable. That's when it's completely open to change. So I created this playlist that's really positive, so that I could have a positive experience while I'm sleeping to change my brain. And I was telling Eric that for the first 2 weeks, I had a dream that people in my life were acting untrustworthy. And I had the dream because I was raped. And so my brain was reconfiguring the way it was perceiving trust, I guess. I don't know. That's what was happening.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy.
2 weeks.
It was crazy.
All right. So I'm going to share this with everybody. There you go. There's a QR code. This is from the book. I actually just screenshotted a page out of the Kindle book. Hit this. It'll ask you for your name and your email, and then you'll get an email back that will include the download of this playlist. I downloaded it. I listened to it today. It's good stuff. I'm all about coming up with things to help prime the pump for self-care. This is Ruby's operating system. It's her mantra. It's the book from which she preaches. And as I've spent more time hanging out with her, I've learned that there's a lot to the notion that, you got to fill your tank before you can really be effective at anything else. So with what you've heard today, I told Amber, I said, I'll be honest with you, I get a lot of books as a result of the work that we do and doing the show. And I can't read all of the books. Usually what I do is I skim the books and I read the parts that capture my interest. I started reading her book and I just read the whole thing. One sitting, boom, done. It was like 2 hours of just reading. And I wrote so many things down that were relevant to me. I'm always interested in why people write books, especially books that are pointed, at least directionally at the business community, because there's a lot of boring business books out there. And this is not one of them, right? This is a book about life. And Amber and I were talking in the pre-show, and she said, it's just fucking real. And I'm like, it is fucking real. And then we were talking about her history, and she said she worked for the Bush and Obama administrations. And she said that the Obama administration really liked the real Amber. And I loved that because I can just see this happening in meetings at work. So I do want to open it up to questions. You've heard a lot of stuff. I mean, you've heard me be excited about it. So what questions do you have for Amber?
I have a question. Amber, hi. Lori.
Hi.
Sorry, I joined a little late. Super, super excited to learn more about the work that you do. So in the book, is there anything that you can share now about, like, I'm thinking about my kids, right? 16 and 14. How do I infuse this in their psyches? How do you help them build a life in this way so that maybe the building of the woundings is less as they get older?
Yes.
And less to sort of recover or unwind? Like, as a parent, how do we help our kids?
Yeah, honestly, that's such a good question. I do believe, Lori, it starts with you. Because the more that you can heal your wounds, the less you will exhibit them in your behavior.
Yeah.
And then so one of the teachings that I include in the book is you can't give what you don't have. Hurt people hurt people. So the more that you can fill yourself up, the more that you can exhibit love for them, and the more that they will see how to behave in a loving way.
Yeah. I love that, because sometimes I'm trying to find language that they can take in at their levels of development and experience of the world. And sometimes it's just like, I don't know how to say these things for where they are right now, but they're always watching and they always feel, right? Energetically.
Yes.
They know what's up, even if they can't put words around it. So I like that too. Yeah.
Well, I know I'm going to sound like a repeat, but all of it is really purposeful. Like, in other words, for your children, and I have a daughter, so I'm saying this to myself too, which is, me, Amber, don't judge myself to myself or out loud. Be kind to myself and be kind to myself out loud. Be compassionate to my, and then through that, you then teach the child how to, they then see it, and then they will model that behavior too. Because then they can learn how to really love.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, Ruby, what you got?
Well, I was just thinking that, Amber, everything you said, Eric knows, right? Like, it just like resonates in my soul. Like everything you said, and like, yes, yeah, and it's aligned with how I feel about the work we do in coaching. There's something that you said that we have to remind people who they are, and I feel like that's actually what we're doing in coaching. Right. Is reminding them who they are, bringing aliveness and loving on themselves. Exactly. And understanding they have a choice. Like, if I could think of the two things that you said, when I'm coaching, I'm thinking about giving them freedom and recognizing they have a choice, or creating a space for freedom. I can't give them that. And like helping them love on themselves and appreciate that person they were yesterday. And loving on the woman or the man or the person that they were 6 months ago or 10 years ago. Because it's actually in that like loving and compassion and empathy that helps us release it instead of holding it under. Yes. So I don't really have a question, but I just, I love everything you said, and I did buy the book.
I knew it. I knew it. You owe me a drink.
Well, and Ruby, one of the things that I say is thoughts and feelings are a choice. Is the thought or feeling that you're choosing helping or hurting you? We think our thoughts are us. We think they're us. And in actuality, most of the time, there's some unconscious program that's continuing to play out. And so until you can sit there and actually observe it, it's running you. It's running you. Something from your past is running you. Just like how you got to work, it's running you. So then the question is, are you going to choose to identify with that thought? Are you going to choose to identify with that feeling? It's a choice. We think it's not, but it is.
Stupid brain.
I do have a question. I just thought of one when you were saying that. Because I think a lot of us get really stuck in our heads, obviously, right? It's all that we're talking about. It's that neuroscience bit. And there's something about connecting to our intuition and our body and listening to our hearts. Like, there's more of that whole body, whole person integration too, that I think can help us when we get so like go move, right? If you're stressed out or you're fight or flight, and getting into your body can actually help. So the question is, do you have any tools or ways to help people sort of integrate that? Or do you do any work in that area?
Yeah. So what I do now is, so I help executives and my existing clients basically with all of this. In which case, Ruby, you're very intuitive. You're right on, which is what's happening is you're in the mind. You're not actually in the body. So you have to. That's why one of the things I say is, you have to get into the feeling. When you get into the and specifically feel the feeling, whatever the feeling is in the body. And by feeling the feeling of fear as a body sensation, not as like the feeling fear, but you feel the physical sensation in the body, that then will dissipate the feeling, then it will dissipate the feeling fear, and then that will dissipate the thought. So these are all, this is all consciousness practices. And back to Eric's point at the beginning, I have nothing bad to say about unconscious bias training. It's great for awareness, but we own a change management firm. It's not enough for me to know about it. I want to change it because the oppression lives within me. And I don't want to exhibit that oppressive behavior. And I want to help my clients be the best executives, the best CEOs, create the best workforce. Because if they don't, it's going to affect profitability. It's going to affect the customers because you're going to be scared and you're not going to properly assess risk. Then it's going to affect how you allocate resources because then you're going to be like, oh, I don't want to have some great person that's way better at something than me. Again, there's that wounding. When in actuality, you want people that are better than you to do a something so that you don't have to do that something. Hire people that are better than you than what you are. That's what an amazing leader does.
Don't fall prey to the mini-me bias. You'll
That's
also
right.
learn about that in the book. Amber, if people want to learn more about you and what you do or hire you, where do we find you?
Go to my website, healthefourwoundings.com. And it is with an S, healthefourwoundings.com.
Awesome.
And I just would like to say one other thing to all you beautiful listeners, to my white brothers and sisters. I am so sorry for all of the past things that I thought. And I know they were part of my conditioning. I have forgiven myself, and I want you to forgive yourself too. It's not real. We're all worthy.
Wow. Whew. Her name is Amber Ontiveros. The book is Heal the Four Woundings, and I'm teared up, folks. I don't know about you. I'm not crying. You're crying. All right. If you didn't get the playlist is here. You can also get it on her website. Let's shift into our end of show ritual. Let's do our funny things. Good feels, our silly cocktail, and then let's go to dinner. And for those of you who celebrate the capitalist Valentine's Day, have a great time spending money on things that you don't need to spend money on. I digress. Funny things. Things that made me laugh this week. Funny thing number one, it's the season of Girl Scout cookies. Girl Scout. Hi, how are Thin Mints, please? Oh, because we all work in offices, we can identify in the office me. Well, my work here is dumb. Coworker. You mean done? Me. I do not.
Do not.
Because it is Valentine's Day, here's a relationshipy one for you. Every relationship needs one person who says, what else has he been in while watching something? And one person who excitedly reads their IMDb out loud. Everyone knows that I love funny children's book covers, and this one's for Ruby. Sneeches get steeches and other street lessons.
Fuck yeah, they do.
Yeah, it's for Amber too, because when Amber was a teenager growing up in Arizona, I lived in Arizona for a long time. She is a self-confessed chola. So she knows that snitches get stitches.
Yes, they do.
Amber, I do want to know, what is the shade of chola lipstick that you reference in the book? You never say the color. I was wondering, what color is that?
Oh my gosh, that's too long ago. That's like 30 years ago. Dark. I used to wear really super black, dark brown lipstick. Yes, I was a chola, if you can believe it.
Baggy pants, flannel shirts. I can see it.
Yeah.
I can see it. All right. Funny thing, next one. It's a dad joke one. Yesterday, one of my good friends told me I often make people uncomfortable by violating their personal space. It was a really hurtful thing to say and completely ruined our bath together.
Oh, God.
But my favorite funny thing is a reference to a movie and a Super Bowl joke all in one. Taylor Swift driving past Jason Kelce outside the Bills Stadium after the game that they won. That was the day that Jason Kelsey took off his shirt and jumped in front of Taylor Swift on the TV. For those of you that know this movie, we're streaking across the quad, everybody.
Streaking in the quad.
Streaking across. Frank, get in.
Frank the Tank.
Frank the Tank. Today's Good Feel story. You know what he does, Steve Hartman. He gets
Finally,
it.
tonight, CBS's Steve Hartman goes on the road with a man who found that the best tool in the toolbox is our heart.
After his retirement, and especially after his wife died, 76-year-old Danny Chauvin of Waveland, Mississippi, says he had way too much time on his hands.
If you're alone with just your thoughts, does your mind wander places?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That you don't want to go?
Yep.
Steve Hartman. So good every
That's a
time.
good one. Yeah.
Today's semi-quarantine cocktail is called Ain't No Man, which is an Avett Brothers song. If you don't know that song, go check it out. This cocktail is a riff on the Immaculate Conception cocktail. You're going to need 2 parts bourbon, 1 North Carolina-based aquarium stingray named Charlotte, 1 part yellow chartreuse. There are no dude rays around her for the last 8 years. 1 part huckleberry liquor, and she's preggers with 4 pups. 2 dashes of Angostura bitters. This looks like a case of parthenogenesis, folks.
Wow.
Bolshar did not hook up with the sharks in the tank. That is genetically impossible. It's a whole new twist on the Stingray Shuffle, which if you've ever been in the ocean in Southern California, you know why people kind of slide through the sand, because they step on these little round stingrays and the stings hurt. This happens occasionally, this parthenogenesis, typically not in stingrays, in insects and some other animals that it's happened in. It's not them cloning themselves, but what happens is the egg fuses with another cell in the body and it triggers cell division, which leads to the creation of an embryo with no male participation. The female creates the egg and the egg becomes an embryo.
Girl power.
Girl power. Just another sign that you don't need us at all. You don't need us at all. So there you go. Ain't No Man. I got gratitude for you. I got gratitude for Amber. Thanks to everybody for being here today. Fantastic conversation. We will see you guys in 2 weeks because Ruby and I got to go on the road. Back in 2 weeks. Have a good dinner, everybody. Take care.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you had a good time and learned a thing or two at today's happy hour, please share it with your friends. If you want to join our tribe, head on over to skyeteam.cloud/TCB or email us at info@skyeteam.com. That's SKYE team.com. Thanks again, and remember, you've always got friends at the Corporate Bartender.